You're watching and listening to Conscious Evolution Media, shifting global consciousness at consciousevolutionmedia.com.
Are you in the entertainment industry? If you answered yes and you want to promote yourself, your passion, and profession, check out Creative Independent Artist magazines at CIAartists.com, endorsed by Kids Talk Foundation worldwide. Today's podcast is brought to you by Kids Talk Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing youth advocacy, television programming, and training services in the United States, along with comprehensive medical and educational services for the developing world. Most recently in Kenya, Africa, where Kids Talk Foundation provides a feeding program, medical care, and educational services to over 1,300 young people each day. Please help our youth and place your donation. Go to www.kidstalk.org.
Welcome to the Mind, Body, and Soul Show on Real Coaching Radio Network. How would you like to attempt to demystify with us the realms of the mind, body, and soul to bring you a more holistic and balanced way of living? Healthier in all realms of the psyche, the spirit, and the body. Here is your host and executive producer, Coach Steve Toth.
Welcome, everybody, to the Mind, Body, and Soul Show, going on our 9th year. On this beautiful Thursday afternoon, we are going to be spending it with Ten Rose, who is an author. We want to welcome Ten Rose to Conscious Evolution Media Network. Welcome to the show, Ten.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Awesome. So if I took away the title author and any other titles that anybody ever have called you in your life, what would be left? Who is Ten Rose? Like, really?
Just a regular person, I would suppose. I mean, it's the same as any other person.
And what would that be?
I don't know. For personally, I guess a slight difference would be that, let's see, what could I find for a label that hasn't been used yet? Broke-ass altruist. How's that? I try to run projects, but I'm basically broke myself. But I've managed in the past to actually get some things done in spite of my own financial situation. I don't really have much concern about it, but broke-ass altruist, I think, would be pretty accurate.
All right. So tell our viewers a little bit about you, your history, your story, the shorter version, and don't need to start at birth.
I was just see that you stole my opening line. I was born a poor black child, but I guess Steve Martin used that already in the movie. I grew up in Brooklyn. Was dealing drugs there as a kid. Got out at about 15 and started hitchhiking around the country, and that's basically what the first book is about. Fearless Puppy on American Road is about 40 years of hitchhiking around America and all the really wonderful people that I had the good fortune to run into. I mean, it stands to reason people won't usually stop and pick you up and let you into their car without knowing you, unless they are pretty good-hearted people to begin with. So it was quite an experience over those years, and some of the more pronounced stories are in the book, in that first book. And then after that, I went to Southeast Asia, and the second book is Reincarnation Through Common Sense, which tells a lot about that experience there, mainly about the half year I spent living in a Buddhist temple without...
Okay. So what was the first book again?
Fearless Puppy on American Road is the name of the book.
Oh, that's right. Fearless Puppy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we probably have something in common because I used to be a fearless puppy myself. I escaped from a communist country while it was still... So I came from behind the Iron Curtains, as they used to say. They don't say that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Today's kids don't even know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, younger people wouldn't, I guess. That's a recent disappearance, that Iron Curtain.
So why did you why did you write a second book about reincarnation?
But actually, the reason that the second book isn't really about reincarnation in the conventional sense, but the reason I wrote both books, I never planned to be a writer. That was not on my bucket list. This is actually a project. The books are just a funding vehicle in order to raise money to be able to sponsor wisdom professionals, starting with, but not exclusive to, Tibetan monks and nuns. The idea behind that whole concept is that we need more wisdom in the world. I think this is pretty obvious to anyone who's ever read a newspaper. So the books were really a secondary consideration. It just seemed like the odds were better of selling 1 million books than they are of winning the lottery. And I thought that might be a good way to go about trying to raise the funds necessary to sponsor wisdom, an increase in the number of wisdom professionals on Earth, as well as to present a little bit of wisdom within the books to anyone who reads them. So
what is wisdom really, Ten?
Yeah, what is wisdom? You could just use the word sanity, I guess. Wisdom is operating out of a frame of mind that's not completely self-centered. I think that's insanity. When you think the world revolves around you and that there's a separation between you and everybody else and your stuff is more important than everybody, I think that's basically insanity. And to realize that we really all are one person in different disguises, as the old expression goes, and to work towards facilitating some cooperation between the different factions of that singular unit that we are, which is more important than the individual people that we are in the long run. I think that's wisdom in a nutshell. That's one definition. I mean, I guess there's 1,000. There's probably as many definitions.
It's a good one, Ten. Right now I'm only interested in yours. And tell us, where does wisdom come from and who has it?
Everybody's got it. Everybody's got it. It's covered over by layers of bullshit. We get programmed by, it is. We get programmed by the media and the culture and religion and economic systems and any manner of things from birth until death. And that sort of covers us up, makes us nervous, has us reacting to certain things that we in fact should not be reacting to the way we are reacting to them. So I think the wisdom comes from, it's inherently in everybody already. It needs to be uncovered in order to show itself. But I don't think it comes from the sky and gets dropped into your head or anything. What comes from other places are the influences and the catalysts that allow you to peel off another layer that's covering up your innate wisdom.
So in terms of what I'm reading there between the lines, I think what you're saying is that we probably have this wisdom in a pure format at birth, and then it gets covered up and we forget with all the layers of stuff that our parents teach us, our teachers, everybody around us has, like they know how life is.
Which keeps us incredibly distracted from ourself, and the wisdom that's within. I mean, you're reading a newspaper, you hear about a war here or there, or a real one if somebody is attacking you. You're worried about paying the bills or what time you're going to be where and how somebody else is going to react to something that you say. And all these things just draw your attention away from the innate wisdom that would go about solving a lot of those problems if we gave it the credence and the attention that it deserved. But
Right.
we don't.
So would you say that really our current state as humanity, it's really about our evolution towards that wisdom? Because I don't believe or see that we as human beings, the way we look, like the way your body is and where my body is, it's gonna go through any more evolution. It is what it is. We have 10 fingers, 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. It's gonna stay that way, probably, I would say.
Well, we don't know.
Well, we don't know.
Develop wings. I mean, if the old theories are true and we crawled out of the ocean or came from monkeys or whatever, whatever the evolutionary process was, that doesn't mean that in another, 20,000 years we won't have wings and be able to fly across things. A little far-fetched right now, but I guess at the time when we were Neanderthal, it seemed a little far-fetched that we'd be walking around looking like this. But the point of all that, of course, it amounts to evolution, but the evolution will have to be more mental than physical. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
yeah.
You said it more elegantly than I did.
Yeah, sometimes I
Okay.
get lucky.
Yeah. So what do you think what people in general, what's their chances
Well,
of
if
getting
they
to this
take
wisdom?
personal responsibility, yeah, if they take personal responsibility, the chances are good. The problem with this whole evolution and with things improving and growth and everything getting better, what are people's chances of uncovering the wisdom? A lot of the problem that I see with this is that people are waiting for it to come from somewhere else, all right? And wisdom is
So
not gonna drop
they're
out
looking
of the
from
sky.
outside
Yeah,
to
it's
themselves,
the old
right?
ocean analogy. Everybody's yelling at the ocean to change without taking responsibility for their drop. And it's only drops that make up the ocean. There's not going to be some big ass somebody come and save you kind of evolution and everything overnight turns into beauty and flowers and nobody hates anybody anymore just because
Well,
we're
yeah,
yelling at
so
the ocean.
then that's
One
been-
individual-
Yeah, that's been
individual drops
attempted,
happen.
and every time somebody tries to do that, we kill them.
Yeah. Anyway. But it's
Every
not
time
gonna
somebody tries to save us
happen.
as the masses, we kill them.
Yeah, well, because and it's not a happening thing. I mean, nobody's going to save us. I mean, right, salvation's been circling the planet for a long time. It's got no place to land, and each individual has to provide that landing pad. They have to open themselves up, and that will come from within them, and that personal growth. It's only going to happen one person at a time, in my opinion. There's not going to be
Yeah.
any big outside thing that's going to happen, or any person that's going to come and be like the new Messiah or whatever. I think it's nonsense. Right? Each person is an individual Messiah, and they got to add that to the ocean. You got to improve your drop, clean up your drop, add that to the ocean, and if enough drops to cause an improved ocean, well, there you go. And we have progress and evolution and growth, But to
I
wait
agree
for
with
the
you.
ocean to do it for your drop, I mean, that's a pretty, convoluted way of thinking, in my opinion.
Yes, and I tend to agree with you. So I've been in this conversation, Tan, for more than 30 years. It's probably coming close to 40, and people are still asking. So what do you mean by I gotta open up, or I gotta open myself up to my own wisdom and to my own truth? These are words, and people don't necessarily get what that means. Can you
Well,
help us
no.
with that?
No, they don't, because they don't give themselves time to get to know what that means, because they're constantly involved in stuff that's outside of their own being. You know, their wife, their husband, the kids, whatever you read in the newspapers, the threats on TV of diseases and wars and everything else. So if you're constantly involved in, you know, and a formula for anybody who wants the answer to the question you just asked, just go in a room, close the door, don't let anybody in, and sit there and shut up for a day, all right, for an hour, for a half hour. Sometimes it doesn't even take that long. But how are you going to reach that any kind of realization if you're constantly dealing with other people's realizations? You know, which is basically what most people's lives come down to. They're at worst, they're dealing with the company's reality. They come home, they're dealing with the family's reality. They read the newspapers, they're dealing with the manufactured reality that is thrust upon us to keep us afraid enough to think we need other sources to protect us. So if you're always living in other people's realities, you're not living in your own. Just go close the door, sit by yourself, and don't think. Just let yourself come to yourself. And I can't think any better way to do that. That's why all these monks and nuns turn out to be so intelligent. They spend a lot of time doing this. Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, and what do you think stops people from actually doing this, like actually going inside?
Habituation to a large extent, and programming. You get born into a system, you're brought up by your parents, the churches, the schools, the media influences, and everything else, and people think that's what it is, you know. This is what it is. So they're so habituated into this pattern and this process that a lot of folks don't see the other possibilities in life. I mean, that's just, if you're brought up in a poor ghetto neighborhood, you don't always see the possibility of becoming a rich person. It's just not within the frame of reference of everything around you. If you're born a rich person, you don't realize that the bottom could fall out of your life and you could be on the street any minute. Some rich folks are very nice, but a lot will be running around acting arrogant and haughty and thinking, oh, I would never be in that position because, you know, I'm just so much smarter or better. Folks don't realize that anything can happen to them at any given minute, and they can change things of their own accord. And if you keep pointing yourself at something and keep moving towards it, you have to get there. Try it sometime. Point yourself at something. I'm not talking to you specifically, but anybody. Point yourself at something.
Oh, it's okay. I am not an exemption to this.
Yeah, if you keep walking towards it, you will have to reach that thing eventually. But first you have to know that the thing is there, and that seems to be the problem. And that, I think for better or worse, not only the intense contact with Buddhism, but the reason I think the way I do, and I'm not promoting it at all, but has to do with 500 tabs of acid that I did as a kid. That kicked me so far outside the box that I it got a little bit skewed view of things as compared to what was considered the norm. You know, certainly it's the wrong way to go about it, and I don't recommend it to anybody. But in my personal case, it seemed to work. It killed a lot of people as well, you know, because a lot of these drug experiences are like putting rocket fuel in a moped, and you know, they can be a lot more dangerous than they can be helpful. And meditation certainly works a lot better and a lot more safely and sanely. In my particular case, I just got kicked out of the box by being a teenage drug dealer. So, but whatever it is that breaks you of that pattern, and I think that's the point in the answer to your question, why don't people see, you know, these other possibilities? If you're born into something and you live that way all your life, you don't know any better. Look, a lot of the people who were born and had slaves 300 or 400 years ago, if they were born today, would not be that big a jackass. All right? but they were born into the system where this was taken for granted, and they didn't even think, they had no catalyst to kick them out of that sick frame of reference. So they just ran with it and thought nothing of it, you know. So
Okay, got it. So in a way, what you're saying, or what I'm hearing, is that we are caught up in the current of life, and all we have time and energy to do is to survive.
And we don't have awareness that there's a shore we can swim to. We think that we're born in that current and believe that that current is all there is. I mean, there's like no concept of the fact that there are shores on either side to swim to.
Gotcha. All right. So how do you think that, and you referenced this in your own background, how do people end up drug addicts, alcoholics, sex addicts, and all the other addictions that I don't have time to mention? How do people end up there?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different ways to get there, unfortunately. But I don't know. I guess the main thing is this separation from self that we're talking about. I mean, people know it's like it's like I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, but people, you know, the guy.
Yeah, my favorite movie, and I went to school with the people, the two guys that made the movie.
Oh, no
Same
kidding.
school. Uh-huh.
Yeah, wonderful. But that's well, then you know that yeah, folks don't just have no concept that there is something different and need some kind of wake up call, I think.
So would you say, I just have a feeling from my own experience is that people go to these addictions because it's a way not to feel the hurt. It's a way to numb the hurt that we already have from birth, and we want to not remember that life hurts. That's why Hollywood and the entertainment industry is so popular, because they distract us from ourselves so well. Like, that's why The Matrix is so good, because when I've probably seen it a dozen times, when I watch The Matrix, I don't think about my life. I'm in the movie.
Yeah. Well, and it's that feeling that Neo had, that thing was wrong, but you don't know it. And there's another good example. In the current, all your life, you figure this is what it is. You don't realize that there's somewhere else to go. But then you just know that something's wrong.
Right.
Something
Inherently. We inherently
wrong.
know it.
Yeah.
And we don't, and a lot of us don't even want to talk about it, but we do know it. We don't want to acknowledge
You do a lot of
acknowledge
drugs
it to
and alcohol
ourselves.
to bury it, yeah.
Or to each other. We're pretending like it's not there. Right?
And if we don't do a good enough job of pretending it's not there, that's where the drugs and alcohol come in, you know.
And then we get friends that like the same addictions, and all of a sudden everything is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until
Well, then we have that union amongst people that's supposed to happen without the drugs, really, you know. You're not supposed to need drugs to do this, but sometimes
Yes.
you know. Look, it's like it's like a dog that gets beat too much. You're going to cower in the corner after a while and not come out and assert yourself as an individual, as a human with a mind that can think of its own, if you go through a long life of this kind of like layer after layer of nonsense piled on you. So
yes. So let's follow this path here. So I think everybody that's willing to admit and willing to be authentic about admitting the addiction part and the pain part, there's a day that comes for all of us that I call the day of reckoning. And I'm sure that you've had it, because
doesn't
you're still
come
here.
for everybody. I've got a lot of dead
Yeah.
friends that never got that, you know. I used to hang out with a crew of about 13 or 14 junkies. There's only 2 left. And that happened a long time ago. There's a dozen of us out of the 14 lost within a year and a half there. So not everybody reaches that day of reckoning. But
Right. The ones that do are actually lucky.
yeah. Yeah.
So I consider myself lucky, and I think you're lucky. So would you be willing to share your day of reckoning, what it was like?
It was more of a process, really. It was more of a process of reckoning. It's not like anything snapped in my brain overnight and I suddenly decided this wasn't the thing to do. It's just as you get there, but the meditation had a lot to do with it, of course. And the more of it you do, the more layers of garbage are peeled away. The things really start to wane off by themselves, you know.
Once you are willing to give yourself to something else, perhaps something bigger than you.
Yeah, well, that's, of course, another big thing. You know, folks get all involved in what's not actually themselves, but it seems like they get involved in this surface level of living, and they just throw a lot of drama into that, and a lot of intensity, and a lot of attachment. You know, there's a lot, and that's it. I mean, when you're scared, you're grasping at things more. So it's all like I, me, mine, and it's all about you. And of course, when you're feeling like that, then whatever happens to you is a very devastating event, and you don't snap out of things quite as quickly.
So what about all the positive people that got addicted on being positive, but they're actually pretending? Do you ever come across those people?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so there's been a movement in this country, and didn't necessarily start with that movie, The Secret. It actually started before that. But The Secret was the first movie that came out that was so successful in terms of its marketing that if you talked about these things, like things that you and I are talking about right now, people actually didn't label you that you're crazy. And you must be a tree hugger.
Crazy. You have to have patience with this. You have to have patience with this, because they call Mother Teresa crazy. I mean, when she first started to do what she was doing, and I heard Father Gabriel, who was a 50-year friend of hers, telling the story, they thought she was cracked, you know. So it doesn't matter whether you know, that's one thing about peeling away the layers of crap. You're not so concerned about other people's opinions anymore, and you kind of have a pretty good feeling about what's right and what you should be doing. And at that point, you can maintain your inner fortitude and have the patience to just keep doing it and really not care if other people are accepting it as well and telling you you're crazy. Because throughout history, I mean, look, the famous Martin Luther King speech about the Society for the Creatively Maladjusted, you know. That's about what it comes down to. I mean, creative maladjustment has always been the story of progress throughout history. You can't make any progress, you know. So, yeah.
Okay, so are we? I want to make sure that I have clarity about this thing called positive thinking. So
I think just thinking will do. I don't know. If it's supposed to be positive, they'll get there.
It's been kind of a movement throughout the last decade or two that if you just think positively, and when you get on social media, like on Facebook, Twitter, and all the other stuff that we have nowadays, talking about technology.
Yeah, but what's your definition of thinking positively? I mean, to think positively in an irrational manner and say everything's going to be all right when people are dropping bombs on your head is a lot different than saying I'm thinking positively, people are dropping bombs on my head, I'm going to think positively. How do I survive here? What do I get under? What's my best option? What other country can I escape to after that's happening? That's thinking positively in a rational manner. What a problem a lot of people seem to run into is that when they're thinking positively and using that term, they're just making shit up that ain't ever going to happen. I mean, to
Well,
think positively and
what I'm describing, Ten, is not acknowledging that there are times that you don't feel good. Not acknowledging that sometimes negative things are happening, and basically covering it all up for the sake of being positive.
yeah,
So
that's what I'm
it's
saying.
an inauthentic way
It's
of being
irrational.
positive.
Yeah.
Yes, it's irrational.
It's irrational. That's what I'm saying. If you want to think positive, you can't like have people attacking you and say it's not happening and everything's going to be okay. To think positive would be looking for the optimal solution that's going to provide the most benefit for the most people in that particular situation. And in that situation, if somebody's like dropping bombs on your head, to think positive and say, oh, everything's going to be all right, I'm immune and immortal, that's not thinking positive. That's being insane, right? And if you want to really think positive, you think towards the best options for survival. How can you help other people get out? Where can you go to afterwards, and so on. So, yeah, that thinking positive stuff is the best idea if it's done in a sane and rational manner according to what's practical, what's actually
Yes.
going on. But if you're just
I-
making up crap, you're crazy. You know?
I'm not against positive thinking or positive thinkers. My preference is for us as human beings to be authentic, and
Exactly.
our ability to share our truth of what's happening with us in the moment openly. So if you feel like shit right now, don't say when somebody asks you, "Hi, how are you? How do you feel right now?" Don't say, "I feel wonderful," because you're lying.
Leo Biscaglia used to have a great line for that. People would, have prune faces, and he'd say, "How you doing?" They'd say, "Fine." He'd say, "Why don't you tell your face?" Because your face doesn't know you're feeling fine.
But some people get so good at this, they can pretend so well that you can't tell. They acting, and they doing a terrific job.
Well, and they're doing the job on themselves more than they're doing it on anybody else.
Yeah, so what they don't
part.
realize is that they're not fooling anybody. Matter of fact, the only thing that's happening is they fooling themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, they could be fooling other people too, but the basic thing that's happening is that they're fooling themselves, that's for sure. You know, and it's not going to be to anybody's benefit.
So
So,
how do you see, do we humanity have a chance here, and what's the future?
well, certainly, the future. Where do you think? I'm Madame Cleo for the phone? I don't know what the hell is going to happen.
I have
in the
no
future.
idea.
Nobody does. But it's certainly up to us as a group, as a planet full of humans. It's not up to the elephants and it's not up to the fish. All right. So far as I can see, it's up to the human beings. And how it's going to turn out, that's up to you and me and everybody else. If everybody starts taking a little personal and universal responsibility simultaneously, gets to work on cleaning up some of the garbage that's leaked out psychologically, spiritually, and physically into the world, then there's certainly hope for a much happier future. If everybody just keeps going the way it is and saying that's how it is, and that's just the way it is a very popular expression. But that's just the way it is manufactured by us every day. It's not something that you're stuck with. Nothing is something that you're stuck with. There's always an option. And to explore the most positive option, that's rational positive thinking. All right? That's not insane positive thinking. That's rational positive thinking. To explore the best options and then go take action in accordance with those options that you've been exploring. that are so positive and can have a beneficial effect, again, for as many people as possible, not only for yourself. I mean, if you're looking at something and say, oh, it would have a beneficial effect if I go kill all those guards on the Brinks truck and take all their money, that's not really a beneficial effect. All right, that you, for your selfish purposes, it may be, but
yeah,
it's
but
not
Ken,
going to
we're at war right now, and it's so common that it has become acceptable.
Well, that has to change. That has to change. People have to readjust their thinking and think this is reprehensible and unforgivable. All right, and I go around saying that all the time. This is not an America bashing things. Pick a country, any of the troops from any of those countries all have to decide at this relatively the same time that this is not the way to go. And so we have to, just use a little more sanity. I mean, this is basic information for anyone who's thinking about it. You don't go and kill somebody else. All right, and people use as an excuse, and it's often a rational one, that well, these people are attacking me. If I don't kill them, they're going to kill me. But that gives an awful lot of leeway into interpretation. So you can, like, say somebody stepped on your toe, and you can shoot them for getting your sneakers dirty, and this happens a lot. Because now you've got that whole mental framework going on where it's permissible to do damage to somebody else. Right? It's not very sane or rational, and it's obviously not functioning because a lot of the pollution and everything else, the rest of the problems that we have on the planet are directly related to that attitude.
Mm-hmm. So we got like somewhere around 360 million people here in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of talks right now about what the government is doing, getting into our business. And I don't talk politics on this network, but I'm just bringing this up as an example because it's probably the best one I can think of right now. So in terms of what's happening out there in the world right now in America, is that a reflection of who we are individually and put together, all of us?
Yeah, who we are as people, and people is the problem. Everybody talks about, oh, it's communism, bad system, capitalism, bad system. The Christians hate the Muslims hate the Christians, this country hates that country, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's saying, well, that religion's wrong, this religion's right. No system is good or bad. It's the people who are good and bad, all right? Because within each system, you'll find all-stars. Mother Teresa was a Catholic, Martin Luther King was a Protestant, Buddha was a Buddhist. Muhammad was an incredible guy. Nobody gives him the credit that he deserves because fundamentalists have gotten a hold of his shit and completely bastardized it, much the same way a lot of fundamentalist Christians have done in this country. The problem is the people. It's none of these systems. It's not us being Americans. It's not, or it's true, there's enculturation there, and that has to be considered. But no matter where you live, what economic, religious system you live under, we're individual humans that have to make individual progress before any massive progress can come in. And you got to blame it, I think primarily, I would anyways, on the educational systems. There's absolutely no emotional intelligence being taught in the schools. They teach reading, writing, arithmetic, and where is the class in compassion? Where is a class in emotional intelligence? Where is a class in what sane, positive thinking is all about? I mean, the most important thing as a species for us is to keep our head above water. And we're diving underneath and staying under too long and getting the bends, looking for garbage underneath when we should be gasping for air up above the waterline. And I don't see that, talk about Americans and all these different systems, nationalities, religions, doesn't make a difference. It all comes down to the fact that everybody's people. And when we start looking at ourselves more as humans, we'll start feeling we have more in common with other humans, and there won't be that separation. It's pretty damn hard because the media is run by organizations and governments and people trying to sell you stuff that constantly want to make you feel that separation and that fear and that anxiety. Oh, somebody's coming to get me, somebody's coming to take my stuff. So all of a sudden you need them to protect you, all right? And that rationalizes their reason for existence, I guess. But the truth of the matter is that we need us for protection, as people, as a species, the way I look at it. I mean, I don't know, it's just one man's opinion, but that's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah, so I wouldn't even say that it's an opinion, because our egos have opinions, and I don't feel from you that this is coming from your ego. I feel that this is coming from your heart.
Well, and a lot of it's coming from the books too. I mean, I wrote the second book sitting in a monastery for a half a year. I wasn't studied. It's an unusual story because there's a lot of, white boys in an Asian temple kind of stories. But I was wacko and they adopted me. The monks and nuns adopted me and took me in, said, you don't have to study Buddhism, just hang out here. So I got to absorb all that, and I really have a feeling that a lot of the stuff I say now, and definitely a lot of the stuff that's in the books, is stuff that I kind of absorbed by psychological osmosis or whatever, just from hanging around with these people for that long in that concentrated a situation. It's not that far-fetched. Anybody you hang around with, why do your parents say don't hang out with that kid, hang out with that kid? Because anybody you hang out with, you're going to, start
You're going to be influenced by.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me?
You're going to be influenced by.
Certainly. So
well, I could think a lot worse things to be influenced by than Buddhism.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to have an addiction, that's a good one.
Well, any kind of pure spirituality. I mean, there's bad Buddhists just like there's good Buddhists. A good Christian is better than a bad Buddhist. A bad Buddhist and a good Buddhist is better than a bad Christian. And actually, I know a lot of Christians. I mean, Buddhism doesn't require any trading in of gods. There is no created God. So I know a lot of people from other religions who do, follow the Buddhist school of thought as well. There's so many Jews involved that there's actually been the term Jewboo invented. There's Quackaboo because there's that many Quakers involved in Buddhism. So it's really a school of thought, not so much a religion, as far as the way I look at it anyways. It doesn't interfere with any other religion. So, but addicted to that school of thought, certainly. If I thought it was a religion, I probably wouldn't have that much to do with it. Religion requires beliefs. I like ideas better than beliefs. So.
Yeah, so do I. I'm actually been working on for some time now to get rid of most of my beliefs because they don't serve me. Yeah. So, because they're not even mine. I took them on. They were somebody else's.
No, exactly. That's what we've been talking about.
I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
That wasn't your mistake. You got thrown into the river. You're riding the current. How are you supposed to know there's banks on either side? If nothing comes and shakes your tree, and turns your head in a direction, no matter a severe life incident, a life-threatening illness or something, heavy drug-induced comas, whatever, I don't know. But these severe things are the ones that throw people off a little bit and get them out of that flow
to wake
of
them
the
up.
Current.
Mm-hmm.
Right, to wake them, exactly. Wake them up
It's
and
the,
give them...
I call it the universal 2x4.
Yeah.
Those are the universal 2x4s.
Yeah.
All right. So if so this is interesting. So we had this conversation. The show is almost over, believe it or not. But if you, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that are watching live right now. Actually, we're being featured right now on Block TV. So,
No kidding, we're live?
oh yeah, we're live.
Hey, hi,
We're
everybody.
just
I didn't know you were
we just
there.
put in front of Block TV, which is a large internet TV network. So we're on the front
All right,
page.
so can I tell the folks about the books and the projects more now? Or is
Go
that
ahead.
late?
This is a good one. Go ahead.
All right.
But
The
you might
book-
want to wait until we get more of them, because right now it's just 100 and some people, and it's going up. So wait until it gets to 400 or 500 people, and then I'll let you know. So
All
give
right.
it another 5 minutes. Okay, you'll have a bigger impact.
All right. Hey, look,
Okay.
you've done 13,000 of these interviews. This is the very first time I've been on Skype. So I didn't
Oh,
know.
okay.
I thought Skype was something an airplane did. But,
All right.
yeah.
So you've done well.
Well,
so-
thank you.
So let's let me just I'm just being connected to something right now. I sometimes experience that it's not even me speaking. I don't know who's speaking, but something is speaking through me.
You too? I get that feeling of being carried sometimes instead of actually
Yeah.
walking myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I sometimes go like, did I really say that? Where did that come from? Okay, so what I'm really curious about, so I kind of let go of saving the world and saving everybody. I really let that go. I don't have the inclination. I don't have the passion for it. I gave it up
I
because
don't believe
can
you. Look at
only
what you're doing.
I can
Look at what
only
you're doing.
save myself. So I put all the lights basically on myself, that I got to be providing leadership here to show the masses that there is something beyond the pain, and there is something beyond
And in
the
that
addiction.
way, you do save the world. So I can't see how you say you gave up on that option, because it looks like you're performing it.
Well, I gave up on trying to control it. So more
Yeah.
specifically, I'm just being me. I'm just going through
Sure.
this myself. It isn't like I don't want to be standing on the top of the mountain and say, "Hey, people, I know the truth, and you just got to do what I say, and then you'll be fine," because that's been tried before, and it doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I don't want to do what doesn't work. So all I'm committed to do is I'm running this network, and I'm having conversations like the one I'm having with you, which I believe these conversations are priceless. Because you talked about wisdom, and if somebody asked me, whose name do you think of right now that represents wisdom? That's 10 Rose.
Oh,
You
you're
have.
very kind. I never thought. I'm just like a street junkie, you know.
That's your opinion of
I'm a
you.
graduated junkie, so that's quite a compliment coming from a guy like you.
and you may want to take this in, because it's interesting that people that are in the business of serving, I've noticed, that have a hard time of receiving compliments and receiving gifts
I can
for
tell
themselves.
you why.
Like they have no problem giving themselves, including take the shirt off of their back and give it to
Right.
somebody. So tell me why.
Yeah, because it's the realization that we really all are the same person. Yeah, that you can't possibly think you're better, more important, smarter, anything else than anybody else if you know, I was going to say believe, but we've decided that word's taboo. But if you know that everybody has that same intelligence and wisdom and that innate goodness in them, and it's just been covered over by layers of crap, and all they need to do is peel off the layers of crap, and there they are, just, you know, every bit as smart and beautiful and in their natural glory as anybody else on the planet. And this is what, according to a lot of people, Mother Teresa had going for her, is that everybody she looked at was Jesus in her eyes. So she could take the poorest person whose skin was peeling off on the street and they were dirty and nasty, and she still saw Jesus in there. And that was her frame of reference through her particular church. But generally speaking, if you know that everybody else is the same as you, it's kind of hard to get haughty and start telling people, well, you ought to do this and you ought to do that, you know.
So and that's really my message to you and to the viewers, is that it seems to me, Tan, just spending this hour with you, is that you have done that work, that you have taken the layers of crap and removed most of it, and you have your head out of the water.
And still some,
and, yeah. And sometimes you may still dip under, so do I. But you know that there is now a lot more that life has to offer than the pain and the addictions. And that's the point I want to make very clear today, because you're an amazing example of that, and you demonstrated it on the show just by having this dialogue with me. And by the way, we have about 500 people, so this would be a good opportunity for you to talk about your website or your books or whatever you want to get across.
Okay. www.fearlesspuppy.org is the website. There are 2 books. Fearless Puppy on American Road, which is about 40 years of hitchhiking. It's a little bit lewd. There's a lot of sex and drugs in that one. It's a road adventure, but there's a lot of meetings with Native American wise people and Tibetan lamas and such running all the way through the book. And you can actually see the progression of this young guy who's like hitchhiking out at 15 years old and does it for 35 years. And you can see him getting less and less stupid as it goes along. That one's kind of fun. It's a true story. Well, I changed it. In the revised edition, which will be coming out next week, I changed it from this is a true story to this is a story based on true events. Because, like I said, I did like 500 tabs of acid, and not everything from 35 years ago is a solid memory. So we'll have to call that based on true events. The second book, Reincarnation Through Common Sense, is more of an exactly true story. It's about 6 months spent in a Buddhist temple in Southeast Asia. The twist here is that most people go to study Buddhism in these places, and I just kind of wandered in, and they felt sorry for me and adopted me and let me stay there. So I was there more as the family dog than as, you know, an actual student monk or anything. Now, the main point about both of these books is that they're just funding vehicles to sponsor wisdom professionals. And the object of all of this is that an increase in the number of wisdom professionals on the planet is going to benefit everything, every person, every flora and fauna that is dependent upon the attitudes of those people. And so that's pretty much the crux of the biscuit there. This is explained a lot more thoroughly at www.fearlesspuppy.org. And again, it's a project to raise funds to increase the number of wisdom professionals on the planet that's disguised as 2 books. I'm not an author. I guess I am an author. I'm not. I never.
You are not, because I introduced you as one.
Yeah, I guess
so
I am.
At least for
now,
the hour.
But, yeah, people told me that that the books are great. I don't know. You know, I don't know. I never had any idea about being an author. It seems like accidentally, and I attribute a lot of that to the monks and nuns in the temple that I lived in, because the more you hang out with people like that, the more you're going to absorb that kind of mentality, and the more it will come out in your writing or your speaking or whatever. So that's the second book. The first book, Fearless Puppy, is Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, though. I mean, that's a little more adventurous and maybe a little more, Reincarnation is certainly a little more sober. If we had more time, I'd explain to you what is meant by reincarnation through common sense, but it looks like we're running out over here.
Yeah, we're at the end of the show. Well, I certainly had a very intriguing time with you. You are
pleasure was mine.
You are very interesting and very open, pragmatic. The words that come to me: pragmatic, straight, truthful, authentic, and very wise human being. So thank you for spending this time with us on the network, and I hope to be in touch with you, and I'd like to invite you to some of our other shows. We have a cable TV show called Living Consciously TV. I think you would do really well on a cable television show. And what the heck?
My pleasure.
You got to get this message out to as many people as you can. And we even have a show. We even have a show called The Radical Man, which is all about men. Because if you noticed, these days, a lot of things are about women.
As they should be by now, because men have caused all the shit, so the women deserve a chance at it,
Yes,
and look at
yes, I agree. But the men, the men are falling deeply in sleep, and I think.
Oh, don't worry, the women will smack them awake eventually.
Yeah. Well, you've been absolutely terrific. Thank you so much again for being with us, and for everybody else.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, go to Ten's website, as you said, and check out his books. And other than that, make sure that you back here next week, same time, same place, always on Thursdays at 2:00 Mountain Time and 4:00 Eastern, and of course 1:00 Pacific. Thank you all, and I love you all. And until next week, have a fantastic.
I love you too.
Fantastic week, everybody. Ditto. Thank you, Ten.
Thank you.
Today's podcast is brought to you by ObesityHotline.com, the silent killer, providing support and encouragement in the prevention of this rising epidemic. Featuring the Body by Vi Challenge. Is there a quick answer to the question? Go to www.obesityhotline.com. You're watching and listening to Conscious Evolution Media, shifting global consciousness at consciousevolutionmedia.com.